of the World of Ability Podcast Network. My name is Emily Gelmer, and here with Suzanne Plumley with the Aspie Bridge Show, which is every Tuesday at 11 a.m. Central, and about like diagnosis of Asperger's and so on. So I'm gonna pass it over to Suzanne to get us kicked off and uh, introduce our guest.
Thank you, Emily. I so appreciate you introducing us today. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Aspie Bridge. Oh, I'm so excited to tell you about my guest today. She and I have known each other since 2021, and she's been a big part of who I have become. And I'll tell you why in a minute. As you know, with all the awesome people across the world who are sharing the traits of what autism are, such as Paul Michelap in Australia, and Sam Stein in the Netherlands, and Sarah Hendricks in England, and then we have Temple Grandin here in the US, as well as myself and a number of other women who are telling you what the traits of autism are and how they affect us. The Aspie Bridge has a different mission. It's to help the women who feel stuck and some of the men who are late diagnosis as well. Help those individuals who feel ashamed of who they are, victimized by a diagnosis, and worried about entering into the world again. The Aspie Bridge is all about gaining the confidence and the poise to go over this bridge back into society where they can feel welcomed and loved instead of feeling like they're being rejected. And that's what my mission is as a torchbearer, is to connect you with people like Kathy Biggs and others who have you've seen up until this point, who are actually holding out their hands saying, welcome. Let me join you into society so that you don't feel rejected, ashamed, nervous, or alone. And that's a big part of what we struggle with, isn't it? So, without further ado, as you always hear me say, I'd love to introduce you to Kathy Biggs, and I'll tell you her story in a moment, but I want you to listen to her perspective on who she is first.
Mm. Suzanne, you're such a pleasure. And I love being here with you and having this opportunity. And who am I? I'm just a woman who loves people. I don't care their background or what have you. I love people. And I see that each and every one of us is special and unique and has incredible potential and giftings. And it's my heart's desire to draw those out. And so I understand one thing for sure is we're all human. And
Yes, we
sometimes we get caught up in our human experience, and because of our uniqueness, it can cause us to have very, very serious challenges. But you know what? Our challenges, our labels, our experiences do not have to define our life. They can just be teaching tools and things to grow us. And so that's my hopes and dream, is to help every person see that their experience and their gifting and their talents are valuable, but we want to turn it around and use it as a means, as rocket fuel to go to the next level of who we are individually, not trying to be somebody else, just be the best version of ourselves, not using our experience or our limitations as an excuse, but seeing it that there's a great value. There's a seed of good in it. And I want to nurture the seed in my uniqueness and my challenges and who I am. So
Mhm.
does that help? Is that clear?
Oh my gosh, and that explains exactly a lot of why you and I connected back in Dearborn, Michigan in 2021. And oh my gosh, let me tell you, Kathy was right there. For all you women who are like, I can't find neurotypical friends, they don't trust me, they don't like me. That's not true. That's not true. It's how we show up. If we're going to be meek to ourselves and not trust people, then yeah, they are a perfect reflection. They're not going to feel comfortable approaching you if you're not comfortable being who you are. And that's why I'm here, is to show you that I have wonderful friends like Kathy and
Yeah.
all the others who have come across. And so, for all of you who are concerned that the neurotypical friendship is not real. No, I
Mhm.
can tell you it's 100% real. Now,
Mhm.
Kathy and I also come from the same organization, and there are two things I want to point out about what she said. Stop signs are not obstacles, they're not roadblocks, they're qualifiers. They're to ask you a question of, do you feel confident?
Yeah.
And how can you become more confident so that you can go across?
Yeah.
It's just to get you to say, and as I said one week, a couple of weeks ago, think of it more as a yield sign, not a stop sign. When we're out there in traffic, we see the yield signs. It doesn't mean stop. It's
Yeah.
not even safe to stop in some places.
Mm.
It means take a breath,
Mm.
your center, find out who you are, and say, I can do this. Yes, I'm autistic, but I can do this.
Mhm.
And let me tell you that when Kathy met me, we were in Dearborn, and we had met a couple of days before this particular event I'm about to tell you about. And she just reached out with a hug practically and just said, welcome. And it was so much fun. And she's not the first. There were a number of other people who will meet along the way, along the year, who did the same thing for me. And what a magical trip that was. For the
Mm.
first time in
Yeah.
my life, I did not feel like an alien or the other person or on this side of the bridge. I
Mm.
felt like I had gone over there. And then on Thursday afternoon, we were welcome to do what is called an ecumenical service. An ecumenical service means it's non denominational,
Mhm.
it's a spiritual lesson on how we are part of a higher world. And we were asked to decide what role we wanted to play in it. For a change, the mentor, Mary Morrissey, said, I'm not going to be running this lesson, you are. Oh, wow, what an experience that was. Wouldn't you say, Kathy?
Yes, absolutely.
Oh my gosh. Now, let me set the stage for you. I had never been up on the stage before in my life except during high school musicals. And I certainly wasn't up by myself. This was my very first time on stage by myself. But I had a test that was running through my mind, which is you can say that you were on Mary Morrissey's stage. And at first, it's like, no, I can't say that unless it's true. So we're going through this thing where we can put our names into a hat to be chosen for different roles. I said, well, this is the best time. If ever I'm going to do it, this is the time to do it. So I wrote my name on the paper that said sermon. And then I also wrote down for scripture because I love Jeremiah's 11:29, which is, I have plans for you to prosper. And that would have been my scripture had I read it. But I got chosen to be on stage for a sermon. Oh my gosh. It was like, dream number two coming through for me because this was my opportunity to be actually on Mary Morrissey's stage. Wow. And I don't think I wrote that script faster, but yet, you know what? It was already there in my heart.
Mhm. Mhm.
It was kind of like what we call going through us, not by us. Those words just came right through, and I got up on stage and I said, there's really no intent on God creating disabled individuals. And I went on to say, we're different abled because we need to serve
Yes.
different kinds of people.
Yes.
And if you can take the time to get to know the people who are different from you and speak positively to them, you're going to find that we all have passions, we all have interests, we all have gifts to give the world. Nobody was ever intended to be purposely disabled. They may not look alike, like in the case of Nick Bonovich.
Mhm.
And he has a lesson all of his own.
Yes.
But that
Yes.
doesn't mean anybody's less than. And I said that
Mhm.
up on stage. I said, we are different abled for a reason.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I'll tell you, I said, and very important words, I said, I am the torchbearer and I am here to let you know that we are here on this earth as autistic individuals to share our perspective what life is like. To, and I am here as a torchbearer to help them go across this wonderful bridge. And let me tell you, I got a standing ovation, and that was the biggest feeling in my life. Oh my gosh. So here was Kathy in the audience, and what a thrill that was for me. Oh my gosh.
Yes, and I was there, and I was witness to a transformation before my very eyes. I saw a young lady walk up on that stage with a burning desire to help people and to bring awareness. And yes, spirit worked through you because you were being who you were supposed to be, and not making any excuses and not letting fear to deter you from this opportunity. So I applaud you, Suzanne. And, I just wanted to share with you as you were talking, that was such, that was divine appointments that we were brought together at that time. But I wanted to share with you something that I found out through my journey is uh, what is it, Abu Dhabi. In Abu Dhabi, they don't consider people handicapped. We have handicap parking and handicap this and so on and so forth. They put signs up for the determined people.
Oh, I like that. I
And
use
it's
empowered.
Yes. And so when we get to the place where it's like we shake off the labels and the negative experiences, and we decide that I'm here for a reason, and I'm the way I am for a reason, and it's good. It's just like you said, the plans that you have for me, they're good. And so when we make that decision, it all starts with one decision, crossing a line in the sand and saying, you know what? No more, no longer will I be held back or fearful, and yeah, we're going to be fearful. That's part of life. But it's like we've decided that the fear, we're going to be afraid and do it anyway. But we need people like you to help. You created this bridge. Now we need you to help walk people across, and people like me to walk people across, because we're all just here. It's like Rumi says, he says, we're in the land of, right and wrong. There, beyond right and wrong, there is a place that we can meet. And that's where we want to go. We want to go to that place where we bring the best version of ourselves on my side of it and your side of it, and bring this together for the greater good of all. So I just appreciate you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. There is an important lesson that we've learned, and it's called the content of my life is the curriculum of my evolution. And if you were to go and read Carolyn Miss's Sacred Contracts, she talks about a very important story about Helen Keller, and how before Helen Keller was born, there was her soul up in heaven, and she was given this like placard per se. If you can imagine being up in heaven and a bunch of souls up there, she was given this: you're going to be deaf and blind, and you're going to go through life with that lesson in life. And then she comes across Anne, who says, well, I'll be your teacher. But Anne had to go through her own struggles in her life so that she could help Helen in her life. And it's the most magical thing. The book is called The Sacred Contracts by Carolyn Miss. Oh my gosh, what a pleasure. And it's on Audible as well as reading it, because it is a good thick book, but I highly recommend it.
Okay.
I highly recommend it. It is so good because it talks about Helen Keller's dealings with going through her challenges. And look at where Helen Keller got to.
Oh my gosh, yes. Yes. What a beautiful example of determined. And
Exactly.
yeah.
So,
She did. Go ahead. No, I was just thinking, I just heard of a quote from Helen Keller. Someone said, oh, being blind, that's so awful. What could be worse than being blind? And Helen Keller response was, what would worse would be to not have vision. And vision is the sight inside of us. not outside of us. And so you have a vision, I have a vision, and together we can make this a better world.
Oh, we can. Oh, and that's where the Aspie Bridge came along.
Mhm.
Now, there are going to be a number of my wonderful friends, and Kathy is one of them, who are going to be what I have also called a bridge buddy. Now, maybe you're a coach and you have a lot on your plate, but I know you still go out for dinner. I know you still go out for coffee. And I know with summer coming, you might even go out for ice cream too.
Mhm.
So, what Kathy is willing to do, and what I'm hoping a number of others of you will do, is say, you know what? It might be nice to invite an Aspie woman or a man if she knows, and I'm going to get to that in a moment, to go out for ice cream, to go bowling, to go to a movie, to go and do one of these things. Now, my bridge builders are in the coaching situation where they're going to work with people to get a problem solved. But one of our biggest problems, and I don't know if you're aware of this, Kathy, beyond your grandson or not, we don't want to spend any more Fridays or Saturday nights alone. But we also don't want to go and sit at that table by ourselves. It is so painful to sit at a table at a restaurant for some of these women, to go bowling by herself, to go to a movie by herself. Now, I've come to enjoy it, but that's me. But there are some that will stay home on their couches eating whatever because they're afraid that they will not be accepted. So, what a bridge buddy is going to sign up to do is when I find another person that is in Kathy's area and I say, Kathy, I have Joanne, and Joanne would love to do XYZ, take a walk, go for a bike ride, go to a movie. Would you be willing to invite her to do some of these activities? Or would you invite her to do other activities she might not have considered? Now, Kathy has maybe an hour to 3 hours to call her up and say, how would you like to go swimming at the local pool or whatever? And you know what? That invitation, even the invitation, even if it doesn't work exactly at that time, the invitation is going to do a world of good for her to hear that she is wanted. And that is a big thing. What do you think about the Bridge Buddy idea, Kathy?
I think it's a beautiful idea. And I also want to make it very plain and clear. I know there's a heightened emotional, charge in people who are on the spectrum, but I want you to know that we're not so different.
Mm-hmm.
So I've had those same fears, maybe not to the level, but I've had to overcome and change me. Nobody else could do the work, but it was people like Suzanne, people who were willing to invest in me. And that's what it is. And it doesn't have to be long. It can be just the connection, like you said, being asked to, or just knowing that someone out there is thinking well of me. Somebody thought about me today. And then, when the thoughts come up, well, I don't have this on a regular basis, and nobody, and I don't. And when we get into the nobody and everybody and all that, that's baloney. That's self-pity. And no one prospers from self-pity, not at all. So we have to realize that we're human and everybody's struggling in some way, shape, or form. Do you know Kathy Biggs struggles sometimes? But like you, Suzanne, we have been trained and taught what to do with the thoughts and the struggle. And we can help other people to learn the skill set to change the way they think about their circumstances. Because our circumstances are temporal. They're subject to change, but the change happens because of the change in me first. Because I used to be on the couch eating mindlessly, watching hours and hours of TV, freaking out over all sorts of things. So, it's really just really understanding we all struggle.
Yeah. I mean, that's the whole thing right there. We are not that different.
You're
We
not.
really aren't. And that's the whole reason why I created the Aspie Bridge, And 2 weeks ago with Michelle, we talked about approaching it. Now, one thing I want to make clear is I'm not going to come get you. Kathy's not going to come get you. You have to come out of your houses or out of what I call the Aspie neurodivergent forest and approach this bridge. You have to make the first step. Just like I had to take myself to go up on stage,
Mm-hmm.
you have to approach the bridge because we're not going to confine you. And if you're not ready to approach the bridge, no matter what Kathy and I say, no matter what any of us say, you're not going to be ready. So I am here to help you get ready to get to the bridge. Yeah, you're going to walk with shaky knees like I did up on onto the stage. You're going to be, your heart's going to be fluttering a mile a minute, but taking the action step.
Mm-hmm.
Because my bridge builders are on the bridge and on the other side of society waiting to welcome you. We're not going to come and tug you by the hand and say, come, because you're not going to get the value out of that. No
Yep.
one does well when they're forced to do something that they're not ready for. But we are ready for you when you're ready. And
Right.
that's important. Very
Mhm.
important. And yeah,
Yeah.
we can give you a phone call to say, hey, would you like to? But we can't make you do it. You got to take the steps yourself. Now, one of the things I do as a talk, and I think I may have said this before, is I've gone on stages to say how I've risen above the circumstances, conditions, and situations that have been in my life. And you can too. You really can too. Now, I want to segue over into another part of today's conversation, which is when you're with your immediate family that you live in the same house with, you may not always have access to the individual in your family on a daily basis that might also be autistic. And therefore, you may approach them as if they're a stranger out there because they don't know what your everyday tendencies are, what your everyday passions are, what your everyday life is like. But I'll tell you again, just like we can't bring you to the bridge, that family member cannot drag you out of the room. You've got to come willingly. But let me tell you, Kathy has a special grandson that she'd like to tell you about.
Yeah, I have a member of my family that uh, I was very challenged with until I grew in understanding. And so, I had to come to that place. Again, it was the change in me. And so, but we can help foster change in other people by deciding to change ourselves first, by viewing them differently. So whether you're on this side of the bridge or that side of the bridge, it's like the decision to, I'm not staying like this any longer. This doesn't serve me. I have to see them differently. Whether it's me or you, we have to see each other from that place of possibility, empathy, compassion, knowing that we're all struggling. It's just different. It's just different. And so when we come from that place, instead of demanding our rights to be, you need to understand how I am, and getting fixated on trying to force other people to understand us. Let's flip it a little bit. That's what I had to do. I had to flip it. And you had to flip it. You had to flip your attitude and your thoughts about people on this side of the bridge. You had to flip your attitude. You had to come to a place saying, there are people out there. There is possible great relationships. You drew the line in the sand. So again, we come back to the determined. But it's this learning on both sides to forgive. That's a huge part of it. And being empathetic, which I know is kind of, challenging for all of us to see that, they're going through some stuff too. And so, and then the communication, not so much demanding that you understand me, but asking, help me to understand you. Help me to understand you. Maybe you take the first step. Help me to understand, because we're talking about adults here. We're not talking about children. When I started down this pathway, I was dealing with a 5-year-old. So the only person that really was in this mix that that was mature enough to start this process, it was on me.
Mhm.
But we're talking adults here, accomplished people, people who've gone to school and college and had, careers and tried things and are mature. So let's turn it around and really go the next level of maturity. And there's all inside all of us is the little kid that's slamming the door and so frustrated, I hate them, and things like that. But that's the image of my 5-year-old grandson slamming the door on me and going in his room and throwing a fit and kicking at the door. Well, we might not do that as adults, but sometimes inside of us, we're doing that by just shutting the door and not taking a step in the direction of what we would love. And it's like what you started earlier talking to, just ask a question and then be willing to
Yes.
let them talk and not put up a shield right away and not, try to interject and, yeah, but yeah. That's a
Oh,
5-year-old. That's not a mature adult, no matter what side of the bridge you're on. You
oh,
have to
right.
come to that place. It's like, look, I'm a mature woman. I'm a mature man. I can handle this conversation for the greater good of all.
Right, right. Oh my gosh. Yes, and you brought up an excellent point there, and it's kind of like a pet peeve of mine, and I have learned to compassionately say to myself, well, maybe they're just in a hurry. But one thing that you need to know when you're talking to an autistic person is please don't finish their sentence for them. Please, please say there's nothing on this earth other than a fire or an emergency that could cause me to be in such a hurry that I had to finish their sentences for them. Because there's nothing that says to them, I don't trust that you can think clearly. And then where are they going to go? They're going to go back into the forest again because they're going to be like, well, this person doesn't think I'm good, so I must not be good. And that's further than the truth. So, as I say, you may think you know what they're going to say, or you may feel shut down when people do it to you, as I did. I'm like, oh, okay. She doesn't have enough time to let me finish. And I had this happen to me not too long ago, and I'm like, wow, okay, that was a little disheartening to know that you don't have enough time. I don't see a fire. I don't see an emergency. But because you were in a hurry to do your own thing, you felt you had to finish what I was going to say for me. And that's the first thing that shuts down a relationship from forming is when you think you know the person better than they know themselves.
Mm, mm.
And I
Interesting.
couldn't believe that that happened, but I have grown to a point where I'm like, okay, unfortunately, there are not some unskilled people in this world that don't understand it, but please don't let your opinion about all the people on the other side of the bridge come down to what one person does. And that's a big lesson. And I know that's why a lot of you are scared to go across. But you know what? It kind of is a reversed psychology in a sense, because I'll tell you, we are afraid to go across because we might come across more people who might reject us or close us down by finishing our sentences or one thing or another. But aren't we upset that people are making a one size fits all for autism? I know I am. I know that I can go to a job interview and they have, oh, you're autistic. I see. Well, your energy is great, but I'm afraid we found another candidate for the job. Like, excuse me? And I can't tell you the number of times. So we don't want to be the ones that say, well, all people are like that person who shut me down. So they must all be the same. No, no. We have wonderful people like Kathy and all the others that you met up until this week who are not like that. And that's the whole purpose, is to let you know that if they're like that, you don't need to be with them.
Right.
There's nothing that says there are, what, 7 billion people on this world?
Plus.
Yes, and not every person is going to be like that person that royally cut you off or just disrespected you. It means that you didn't find the person who can value you the way you're meant to be valued. And when I got to BTI, which I've mentioned a number of times across the weeks, I found the most wonderful group of people who, for the most part, I would say a good 95% of them were my people. And you can find people, you can find your tribe. And that's a big thing. What would you like to add to that, Kathy?
Suzanne, I just want to encourage. We attract what we are. If we're angry, frustrated, unforgiving, and things like that, we'll run into those kind of people. It's kind of like the reticular activation system. What we think about the most, we see out there. So if we change what we're focusing on, if we focus on there are good people out there. I mean, just go next. If you don't see the one that's kind and everything, you put out a little prayer of forgiveness and you go next. You don't take it personally. There's a book called The Four Agreements, and one of the four agreements is don't take it personally. I have to do that too. People look at you the wrong way. They don't even have to say words. They can just roll their eyes or just whatever. And if I'm fearful that people are going to roll their eyes about me, I'll see all the people who are going to roll their eyes at me. But if I go forward with an attitude of, there's good people in this world. And, if I run into one that's less skillful, and like you were saying, I can just send them a prayer of forgiveness and go next, and just maintain that belief. There are good people all around me. I may not run into them today, but they're all good people all around me. And
there really are.
There really are. There's so many good people in this world, and it is what we focus on, we get more of. So there's a lot of responsibility on us individually, no matter who we are.
The saying that Kathy is referring to is where you put your attention is where you put your intention. And if you say, well, there are a bunch of people out on the other side of the bridge that don't like me, well, you're going to find every single one of those people out there that don't like you.
Exactly.
And when I found Mary, did you ever hear the story, Kathy, of how I met Mary?
I don't think so.
Okay, wow. So I didn't find Mary in the most ordinary ways. A lot of people go to the Dreamboat Live and then they see her come up on stage. And I had just gone through a firing by a principal that didn't like me. She had that concept of what autism looked like and saw I was different and didn't think I was good enough for her children in her school. Followed me around the classroom, and then when a first grader went home to tell his mommy that a teacher hit him, it was a false accusation. All he wanted to do is get her attention for him away from her phone. And the only way he knew to do that was to say that I hit him. Now, he was misbehaving the entire day at school. I put my hand on his knee to say, please sit down, stay seated. And back in the 70s and 80s, 60s and 70s, putting your hand on a child's knee or their shoulder was actually a silent reminder, good job, keep it up, or I need you to stay seated. And it wasn't taken as the abuse it is now, which is scary. What it is, this little boy went home, told his mother a teacher hit him. The principal, who didn't value me, fired me right away, caused me to go into a couple of days later an accident, a hydroplaning accident that should have killed me because a Mack truck and a minivan hit me. Walked out without a scratch. I was protected by an angel. Got down my hands and knees the day after the accident. I said, okay, God, You just saved me from an
Mm.
accident that should have killed me.
Yeah.
So you have a plan for me.
Mhm.
Let me know. Well, we know Mary's 3 days. We
Mhm.
know the significance of 3 days. Well,
Right.
lo and behold, 3 days after this accident, and I'm down on my knees, I started listening to a podcast. It's about this woman who's talking about building your field of dreams.
Oh, wow.
And I was riveted by this book.
Mhm.
The book led me, the podcast of this most smooth talking woman led me to buy the book. I read the book. At the back of the book was the number for Life Mastery Institute. And then I called them up. Now, I still don't know I'm autistic, which is kind of like uh, if you don't know you're something, you don't act like you're that person. So I called them up because autistic people aren't known to be communicative, are not normally known to be communicative, but I called them up and I said, "Okay, tell me about this program, the Dream Builder program." I created the I ordered the program self-taught because I couldn't afford it. I was working in retail, so I couldn't afford to do it as a coach. I went through it myself. I created a scrapbook to
Mhm.
solve the problem of a family that is so parents that are so connected to their cell phone that they forget their children exist.
Mhm.
I created a scrapbook of an enrichment center complete with the John Boggs. John Boggs wrote a Had a Dream of and he created a house on a napkin. I created a bunch of buildings on graph paper, create an entire community, put it into the scrapbook, and gave it to her on the first day of my very
Oh,
first day of Dream Builder Live. And that's how I got to know Mary. And it's
that's
that's
so beautiful. Yeah,
I
definitely.
mentioned that. And his jaw just dropped. He led me past everybody. Here I am, 4 hours into this Dream Builder program, Dream Builder Live for the very first time. And he's walking me past everyone down to meet Mary. Like, oh my gosh. And
Oh,
so that's where the relationship began. That was my very first dream of meeting her personally. But it was like, can you imagine if I had been told before this? And this is why sometimes a late diagnosis of autism is not a bad thing. Because if you don't believe you're disabled, you won't act disabled.
mhm. Mm, true.
Won't act disabled. And I think that's where a lot of us get stuck. A lot of us women get stuck is it's like, oh my gosh, I'm disabled. Well, or oh my gosh, I'm autistic. What does that mean? Well, autism is not good, right? So maybe, and I'm like, you weren't a victim before you found out. You're not a victim now.
Right.
It just means that we need to create new coping skills. And I'm sure that's what your grandson had learned to do as he went along to get to where he was. It's kind of like we create coping skills. Now, for like me, that Dream Builder Live I was just talking about, I learned I can't sit in the middle of the row. I have to sit on the end seat. Okay, that's not a big deal, is it?
Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
And so you create these little things that say, okay, music's a little loud, maybe I should sit in the back. Or you just find
Right.
ways to cope. But if you don't know, I saw a funny thing the other day um, in Facebook that said, do you know a bumblebee is not supposed to fly?
Yeah, aerodynamically, they're not supposed to be able to
Nobody
fly.
told, nobody told the bumblebee that. We're not
Right?
all that different. A diagnosis is not the end of the world. And I don't want to be an ableist here. Please don't take me as an ableist. I am here as a torchbearer to show you that it is possible.
Yes.
I'm not here to say you should be doing this.
Mm.
No, I'm walking your journey.
Mhm.
And so is Kathy's grandson, and so are all of you. I'm walking the journey. I know what it feels like to have a mother that doesn't validate me all the time. I understand that. And here to help you, as well as Kathy is here to help you, to understand that you're still a human. You're still having a human experience. And you can let that shame and that victimhood stop you and say, I can't go there. Or you can let people, maybe you don't need coaching, maybe you have a coach or a great therapist already. Stay with them. If they're good and they're doing some good, don't leave them. But if you're at that point where you're like, as I was, 8 years of therapy, 5 years of Zoloft, and all I heard was, oh, you're just clinically depressed. Am I really? Am I really? All I felt was numb from 5 years of Zoloft.
Right.
And, oh, well, sure, that numbed my feelings, but that numbed all of me to seeing the truth of who I could be. And so when I got to Brave Thinking Institute and I met Mary Morrissey and all the wonderful people, do you know I'm not on Zoloft anymore? I'm not on any medication at all because I have found the breathing, being around people that care about me, being with people who truly listen to me, like bridge builders and such. They are the ones that can help you. And that's why I created this Aspie Bridge and the Bridge Builders, is because for those of you who want maybe just a companion, you'd come to people like Kathy. Or maybe if you want something more, like we just had one of our women go through the nutritional meal planning because she's got to the end of the day and said, I don't like to cook meals. I'm with her at the end of my day. I don't want to cook meals either. So I paired her up with a bridge builder and they made a wonderful connection. Wonderful meals. This woman's now cooking one pot meals that serve her and her husband really well. And it's what a thrill it is to know that I could connect a woman who felt like she was going to eat junk food or something for the rest of her life. And now she's eating nutritious meals. What a joy that is. And it's not even about me. It's just knowing that I had people like Kathy and like this Jennifer, who you'll meet in a couple of weeks, who were willing to step up to the bridge and say, I'd love to serve as a bridge builder. I'd love to serve as a bridge buddy because you guys do have gifts. Kathy, I'd love to have you finish us up here with anything you'd like to add.
As you were talking, and it just brought us back to a principle: baby steps, baby steps. One step at a time. Baby steps will even take you up Mount Everest. And so it may seem like it's a mountain, but if you just take one step at a time, that's the most important thing. And know that it's possible. Know that it is possible for your life to change and for you to live in a way that feels really good to you. And that's for every one of us. But I want to encourage as many as possible. My grandson and I have such a fond bond right now, and he's telling me about his dreams now. And we talk about his uniqueness and how these gifts of his uniqueness can be applied to his dream. And we don't make excuses. We see how things fit, and we see how things can, are valuable, and people are valuable, and we're valuable. And we're here together for a reason. This is not an accident. So I just encourage every single one, take a baby step and then take another. That's all it takes is baby steps, baby steps.
Absolutely. The Aspie Bridge is the starting point. It's the first baby step for all of you. Now, it's part of my nonprofit section of my coaching career. And what it is it's to help all of you realize that and Kathy and I know this, in order for you to know, like, and trust me, I need to provide something that's going to give you the aid and the confidence to step forward and ask for help. And I know for me, you're not going to come looking for an Aspie coach if you can't trust me to serve you in the way. So this is the way I can provide for all of you who are like, I can't, I don't have money. I. And it's like, yes, you can, but you do need to take the first step. And bridge building, getting onto this bridge is your first step. And while I will give you 8 different coaches, unlimited number of times, once you just establish a relationship with your bridge buddy, that's as long as you two want to have a relationship. But for the bridge builders, you get 2 hours broken up into 3 segments of help to get over there. My hope is that once you get over there and you're like, wow, I feel kind of good. What else do you have? And that's where I step in as a coach to say, well, I do have programs. My program, just like Kathy was talking about Mount Everest, I actually have what I call Enrichment Mountain. So, bridge builders is the first section. I have what is called ascenders, which is the next level, the next plateau. My ascenders is a book club. No, you're not reading the book. I'm going to pull out sections of the book that I think that will help increase your insides, bring you to the center of who you are. And your inside is not a diagnosis. That's just what the society puts on us. It's an explanation, yes, that we might act differently, but it's not a stop sign. It's not a dead end. It's just to help us understand that some things we react to differently. So I have a bunch of books that I would be walking you through as a year-long study, but you only have to take, excuse me, let me change my language in there. I ask you to complete 4 books, and then you can walk on to the next plateau, which is called enrichment. I'm an enrichment coach. I help people find their gifts through all different kinds of activities. After Enrichment Mountain, you enter what I would call journaling or arts, which is you can take music, your love of music through an instrument, through your voice, or through writing, and you can take the next step. The final step is where I do our Dream Builder program because you're now spiritually ready to accept that we're not here to preach a religion, are we, Kathy?
No.
We're not here to preach a religion, but there are some spiritual ways that we can improve our lives through some spiritual teachings. Ecumenical, as I explained earlier, where it's not denomination, we're not preaching any particular way is better than another, but the Dream Builder program is beautiful. But I need you to know you because before you can know the Dream Builder program, because the Dream Builder program is all about how we react to our society on a deeper level. But if you don't know yourself first, that's not going to help you. And after you get to that point, you earn points. When you go through the Dream Builder program, you earn discounts to go to my retreats. Can anyone go to a retreat? Absolutely. But it's those that climb all the way up to the top of Enrichment Mountain who will start to get the discounts. So, as I say, you have a choice. You can come and be a part of it and try it out with bridge buddies, with people like Kathy. You can get a little deeper with a bridge builder and get some help. You can go to Ascenders, which is the book study. You can go to enrichment, the enrichment level, go up to the artistic and writing level, and then the bridge builder, and then you can join us for some awesome retreats. So, Kathy, I want to say thank you for coming today. Do you have any final words?
No, I appreciate the opportunity to be here with you, Suzanne, and I will continue to believe and hold all of what you're doing in high regard because this work is much needed in the world, and I want to thank you for it.
Thank you for being part of stepping up because without people like you and more people who are willing to sign up, if you're willing to be a bridge builder as well, if your plate's full but you like to go out for ice cream or go bowling every once in a while, I can always use some bridge buddies as well. So I would love to have you all join us who are willing. And for ladies, my autistic ladies, please help yourself by approaching the bridge so that we can help you. Because if you stay in the forest, you're not going to become who you're meant to be. And for that, I'd like to say thank you for coming today. Next week, we're going to talk more about the friendships because I think you could use a little bit more help on what the friendships are. And I'll have a number of my friends to help you understand where it's a give and take. You can't expect them to do all the giving. You got to come part way. And so for that, I will say goodbye for now. Thank you, Kathy, for coming today. And I hope you have a great week. I'll talk to you later.
Bye.